Hi there, this is Brian with Gwedo TTJ, and what we're doing is traveling tips. So there are certain things for traveling in Japan. There's some tips that I would highly recommend to you so that you can have a better, safer, and a less expensive journey. Now, what we're going to talk about today are net cafes and how you can use them to travel very inexpensively throughout Japan. Now, I'm not advocating using these fully throughout Japan, but there are definitely ways to save money if you're traveling on a budget. So I'm going to go over a few topics here I have written down on my computer, and then I'm going to tell you about certain things about these net cafes and how you can get to Japan rather cheaply. So what are these net and manga cafes? Well, a net cafe or a manga cafe is a 24-hour cafe that's open, and you basically pay by the hour. So you can stay for 6, 12, 18, 24 hours. You can stay for 5 minutes. You might be able to stay for 5 days if you want to stay inside the building the whole time. If you leave the building, you have to pay when you leave. So it's not like you can just leave your stuff there and then come back and get it. So some places offer like a coat check or something like that where they'll hold your stuff, but you're gonna have to ask the attendants at that specific cafe if you can leave your stuff there and come back and get it. If you need to leave your stuff in like a locker of some kind, you can also always just leave it in the station, and then you can make sure that you pick it up within like 24 hours or so. All right, so these manga or net cafes, they're places that have many different items. Obviously you have computer with a net access. You can use the Wi-Fi that's there, and usually they have bookshelves and bookshelves of manga that you can read. But usually the manga is all in Japanese. I've been to a couple that had a few in English and a few in Korean, but like it was like one small shelf on a single bookshelf in a manga cafe that had like 70 bookshelves full of books. So I mean it's going to be hard to find stuff that's probably written in English. All right, so price. So price with this here, usually around, like if you're going to stay like a full 12 hours or so, if you're going to stay like 8 hours or so, you're going to be paying in between, I would say, 1,500 yen to 2,500 yen. And the reason why I say this is because location really matters. So if you're like in the heart of Tokyo and you're at a manga cafe, you're probably going to be spending closer to the 2,500 for 8 hours there. Whereas if you were like up in Tohoku, where I do my Gwedo TTJ stuff, and you're in like Morioka or you're in Akita City, you might only be paying 1,500 yen for the same amount of time. So it all depends on location. So what do they have in these net cafes? Well, it's actually kind of cool. They usually have a drink bar, so or like a couple fountain drinks you can get with juice or soda, pop, carbonated beverages of different kinds, tea, and sometimes they actually have snacks. They do have snacks, but one of the cool things that some of these places actually have is they have a shower. Now, usually the shower is a pay shower, and you have to provide your own soap and shampoo, but they do usually have a shower on site. Well, no, I shouldn't say all, but some of them have a shower on site. So if you do some research and you find a net cafe that has a shower, you can take a shower and then go to bed basically, and then wake up and then go on. So what kind of sleeping arrangements do they have for people that want to come there? Well, the main purpose of the place is not necessarily to sleep, so don't expect them to have like a bed there that you can just rent to sleep on. So they do have chairs, so just your regular armchairs. So if you are comfortable sleeping in a chair, then you can sleep in a chair. Some of them do have mats. So one of the ones that I've stayed in before actually has a mat that was on the ground, and it was about 2 meters long. And you'd sit on the floor on this mat, and there'd just be a computer table right above you. So you could just sit on the floor and basically use the keyboard and whatnot. Now, I'm a tall guy, so when I stretched out, my feet basically touched the wall on the other side, and my head was like, I don't know, an inch or so, or a few centimeters from touching the door in this little cubicle that I had. So if you're a really tall guy, sometimes you might be crammed, or you might have to sleep sideways in order to stretch out fully, just so you know. And another thing is that they do have sofas, they do have recliners, but a few of them actually have private rooms. So I've seen ones where you pay a little extra money, and they have like 2 or 3 sofas in a private room with you where you can shut the door. And I think some of them even had like a TV in there and whatnot. So you might actually be able to stay with like 2 or 3 people. You're all going to be paying your own fee separately. It's not like one person pays for the room and everybody stays in there. But you could have like a room with peace and quiet, and couches to sleep on in there as well. So next, what you should really watch out for when searching for net cafes. So let's just say the net cafe that you researched and you wanted to go to was completely full and they had no openings for anybody. So you're walking around, you're like, this place looks good. Just be careful. Some of these net cafes out here cater entirely to porn. So if you find a net cafe that caters to porn, or like a manga cafe that caters to porn, you might be finding it very hard to sleep inside the cafe with many different other people that are using the cafe at the same time. So that is something to definitely watch out for. One thing I will say that's very important about the net cafes is that there are a lot of people that are probably going to be doing the same thing you are if you're going to sleep in one. So you need to get there a little early. Now, I know that might put a damper on your plans for like checking out the nightlife in whatever city you're staying in, but if you don't get to the net cafe early enough, you might only get a chair. And if you get there too late, you might be walking around whatever city you're walking around for an hour or 2 or 3 until somebody decides to leave, and then a spot opens up. And then again, you might not even get a mat or a sofa or anything. You might just be a simple chair. So there's kind of a give and take with this. And the reason why I say this is because if you're walking around to like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, waiting for a space to open up, and usually you have to wait till almost 5 or 6 for like the first train, the people that are going to be riding the first train for them to leave, you're not going to be very energetic to go sightseeing. And for those of you that have been to Japan, or those that are planning on going to Japan, keep in mind that most of your tourist attractions, all your temples, all your gardens, all your major attractions, they open at 9 and close at 4. So if you're walking around town till like 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you get a chair, and then you, you sleep, you get up and you leave, what's going to happen is you're basically going to have eaten through most of your sightseeing time. And that could definitely put a damper on your plans. So get to the cafe early. I would say in between like 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is probably the best time to get there. And I know that some people want to stay out and see the nightlife. I'm saying if you're going to be there for a couple weeks, do it once, do it twice, and then just kind of have a lazy day where you just sleep through the day when you party at night. And that will work out better for you. So try not to. I'm not saying you shouldn't party every night. I'm just saying if you want to get a good spot or a good place to sleep, you need to get there a little early. All right. And one thing you can do that's actually what I've done is I got to a net cafe, and it was around midnight, 1 o'clock, and when I got there, all they had left were chairs. So it was nothing with a recliner, nothing like that, just chairs. And I said, all right, I'm going to sit at a chair. And I asked the attendant in Japanese if when a place for a mat opened up, if they could come get me and I could move into that location. And they said that was no problem. So if you let the attendant know that you want to get a room with a mat, or you want to get a room with a sofa, or you want to get a private room, they can come wake you up if one opens up for you. So that's another good thing that you can do if you're looking to get a nicer place to sleep. And one thing I will say is, with space availability, prepare to be disappointed. This is kind of like a transient life, so a lifestyle for doing this net cafes. So just because you get there early doesn't necessarily mean that space is going to be open. Sometimes people will get there before you will. Sometimes there will only be chairs. Sometimes there will only be sofas. But if you want a place to stay where it's going to be safe, where you're going to have some things like a shower, maybe some drinks and whatnot, this would be the best way to go if you're trying to go to Japan on a budget. I would suggest looking at, there are a few hostels in Japan. There are guest houses. I just did a video on Uchi Guest House, which the price is it's a really good price for staying in Japan. It's about twice as much as you'd pay for a net cafe, but you definitely get a room, you definitely get food, and you definitely be able to take a shower and everything without having to pay extra. And anyway, so this is Brian with the Gwedo TTJ channel, and this is using net cafes to stay in Japan on a budget. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.